Hello, welcome to Liberty Wolf, episode number 6. My name is Zach Strong, the creator and host of Liberty Wolf. I hope you will have a wonderful experience listening to these podcasts. Today's episode is on a topic that I love to hate: feminism. Feminism has been a little bit of a pet peeve of mine for a lot of years now. I despise feminism. Feminism is a communist front movement. I'm going to present some of the evidence for that today. Feminism is a disease. I have a Facebook page, my second most popular Facebook page, in fact, over 900 people, and it's growing fast, devoted to that topic, and which bears that name. Feminism is a disease. I'll provide a link for that below. Now, the whole women's liberation movement is a communist front, as I said. Now, some of you may be wondering, what exactly is a communist front? Well, let me start off by reading a couple quotes explaining to you what a communist front is. This first quote comes from a 1949 book published by the U.S. House Committee on Un-American Activities, which investigated communists. The booklet is titled 100 Things You Should Know About Communism. It's written in a question and answer format, and so it asks the question, what is a communist front? And responds, quote, an organization created or captured by the communists to do the party's work in special fields. The front organization is communism's greatest weapon in this country today, and takes it places it could never go otherwise, among people who would never willingly act as party agents. It is usually found hiding among groups devoted to idealistic activities. Close quote. The second quote I want to mention is from J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI at the time. A man who has been much maligned and lied about, one of the most lied about figures of American history. In fact, however, he was a great crusader against communism, and he should be honored for his efforts in exposing this conspiracy. He said, quote, a front is an organization which the communists openly or secretly control. The communists realize that they are not welcome in American society. Party influence, therefore, is transmitted time after time by a belt of concealed members, sympathizers, and dupes. Fronts become transmission belts between the party and the non-communist world. Some may be newly created, or, as often happens, they may be old-line organizations captured by infiltration. The party has operated hundreds of major fronts in practically every field of party agitation: peace, civil rights, protection of the foreign-born, support of the Smith Act victims, abolition of H-bomb tests, exploitation of nationality and minority groups. Some are based on specific appeal to teachers, writers, lawyers, labor, women, youth. The danger of a party front rests not only its physical appearance or size, but on its ability to deceive. Close quote. As we talked about in episode number 3, which was my introduction to the field of conspiracy research, conspiracy comes from Satan. The first secret combinations or secret societies ever invented were satanic. The devil is the founder of them. The devil is often called the father of lies, and so it makes perfect sense that his people, his henchmen, his followers, would use deception, such as fronts, to get their way. Now, the most damaging of all fronts is feminism, because it strikes at the root foundation of our society, which is families. Families are the foundation of any civil, just, free society. Now, I'm not going to talk a lot about that today. I will devote another podcast in the future to talking all about families. However, I do want to mention a couple points. Years ago, my dad taught me an analogy. He said that families are like cells in a body, and the body is society. So in a body, if enough cells die or become corrupted, the body either becomes sick or dies. Eventually it dies if enough cells die. So too, by parallel, by analogy, when you have enough families, the cells die or become corrupted, then the body, which is society, also dies. It's inevitable. 2 plus 2 is 4. It's inevitable. When families go, society goes. It's just that simple. And it's happened time and time again throughout all of history. You look at the Roman Empire, their families became corrupted. Feminism, in another name, actually started to rise. You had all sorts of symptoms like that in Roman culture that led to the downfall of Rome. You can go through all sorts of civilizations in the past, and you can identify it also right here in the United States of America. Now, if my analogy isn't quite good enough for you, I have a quote by President Ezra Taft Benson, which puts it in pretty plain perspective. He said, quote, "No nation ever rises above its homes. The church will never rise above its homes. We are no better as a people than are our firesides, our homes. The school, the church, and even the nation, I feel confident, stand helpless before weakened and degraded homes. The good home is the rock foundation, the cornerstone of civilization. It must be preserved. It must be strengthened. There has never been and there never will be a satisfactory substitute for the home established by the God of heaven. If this nation is to endure, then the home must be safeguarded, strengthened, and restored to its rightful importance." Close quote. That is 100% accurate. There's really not a whole lot I can add to that on this front, so I just want to emphasize that families are the rock foundation of our civilization. And that's why feminism, the women's liberation movement, is so damaging and destructive, because it assaults that foundation. It breaks apart that foundation and leaves us on a shaky or sandy foundation, ready to be washed away. Now, I said that feminism is a communist front movement, and that's true. And I'll present more evidence for that as we go along. But this movement, the women's liberation movement, actually predates the time that the conspirators called themselves communists. It actually goes back, straight back to the Order of Illuminati. I talk about the Order of Illuminati a little bit in the third episode of Liberty Wolf. Now, in the 1780s, the Order of Illuminati fused together with two other conspiratorial groups. You had certain sects of Freemasonry that came together, and certain Jewish conspiracies. They all three came together in this amalgam of evil. And the Illuminati provided the blueprint for this conspiracy. Now, one of the things that the Illuminati founder, Adam Weishaupt, said is this, quote, "There is no way of influencing men so powerfully as by means of the women. These," that is women, "should therefore be our chief study. We should insinuate ourselves into their good opinion, give them hints of emancipation from the tyranny of public opinion, and of standing up for themselves. It will be an immense relief to their enslaved minds to be freed from any one bond of restraint, and it will fire them the more, and cause them to work for us with zeal, without knowing that they do so, for they will only be indulging their own desire of personal admiration." Close quote. So all the way back then, in the 1780s, Adam Weishaupt came up with this plan for his Illuminati conspirators and their allies to manipulate women into destroying families so that the way could be paved for the complete subjugation of society on a global scale. But the chief study had to be how to take over and destroy and manipulate and co-opt and hijack women, and to make them work for the conspiracy, quote, "without knowing that they do so," close quote. This is precisely what has happened. Now, it must be admitted by any honest person that men have traditionally been the defenders of society. We've been the warriors. We have been the protectors and providers, the defenders. And so if you come up with a frontal assault against men, often it's not going to work. However, if you hit those men in their Achilles heel, which is women, then they're much more easily taken over. And so this is what Adam Weishaupt's genius was. He understood human nature. And unfortunately, they've exploited that human nature by manipulating women. He understood that, for example, if women stop acting like ladies, men will stop acting like gentlemen. Men will stop being chivalrous and respectful if women are likewise not ladylike and respectful. If women don't honor their role, men stop honoring theirs. If women don't place a high value on the family, then men stop respecting the family. If women don't respect chastity and their own virtue, then men certainly aren't going to do it, because men are more driven for sex. That's just a part of our biological makeup. Now, someone might say, oh, this is unfair. Well, unfair, fair, who cares? That's the way it is. That's the truth. That's the reality. So let's look at the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is that if women stop being ladies, men react to that by ceasing to be gentlemen. So we need to get that through our heads. And these conspirators, they understood this. And so this conspiracy went on later to, under a number of different names, and they finally hired Karl Marx. And in 1848, Karl Marx published the Communist Manifesto and the Communist League, which was called the League of the Just, and it can be traced directly back to the Illuminati. They published this manifesto. They got behind it. In the manifesto, it says that one of the chief goals of the communists is the abolition of the family. The abolition of the family. Think of how radically insane that is. We're going to abolish the family. And if you actually look at the writings of Friedrich Engels, Marx, and others, they are very specific about what they mean by that. They mean assaulting what has come to be known today as the patriarchy. This so-called male conspiracy to oppress women, the patriarchy. And so, again, they wanted to do that by means of the women. There's a quote I want to read from a man named Ted Flynn. Ted Flynn authored a book that I really, really like. It's called Hope of the Wicked, and it's a book all about conspiracy. And he has some interesting insights. He comes at it from a Christian perspective, as I do. And here's what he says on feminism, and in particular on culture. He says this, quote, "Culture is everything, and culture can be changed so that all male-female differences, other than in their reproductive organs, will disappear. The totalitarian implications of this are obvious. Culture is a stubborn opponent. To defeat it requires the coercion of humans. The Soviet Union attempted to create the new Soviet man with gulags, psychiatric hospitals, and firing squads for 70 years and succeeded only in producing a more corrupt culture. The feminists are having a similarly corrupting effect on our culture, with only the weapon of moral intimidation. The contention that underneath their cultural conditioning men and women are identical is absurd to anyone not blinded by ideological fantasy. Young women today are lured into women's studies, and what they obtain there is a total immersion in a false worldview coupled with a fourth-rate education. While other students are studying history, mathematics, science, languages, and similarly useful disciplines, those in women's studies programs are working on acquiring belligerent attitudes and misinformation. Instead of preparing students for the world, the programs impose severe handicaps upon them." Now, I love that emphasis on the culture, and his term uses moral intimidation. That's how women have been manipulated. They've been manipulated through their emotions. We're going to give you emancipation, liberation, freedom. We're going to give you equal rights. And then in turn, they use these slogans to beat men over the heads with and to coerce society into adopting their corrupt ways. Now, elsewhere in his book, Ted Flynn said this. He said, quote, "Over the years, feminism has been so closely aligned with Marxism that feminist writers have described the two doctrinal systems as being one and the same. Where socialist and communist organizers attempt to impose economic standards, radical feminists want to control matters that touch us in a deeper way, extending their influence beyond this simply the free enterprise system. Radical feminism is the most destructive and fanatical movement to come down to us from the 60s. It actually started long before that, but moving on. He said, "This is a revolutionary, not a reformist movement, and it is meeting with considerable success. Totalitarian in spirit, It is deeply antagonistic to traditional Western culture and proposes the complete restructuring of morality and human nature. Radical feminism is today the counterpart of 60s radicalism. Feminism rode into our cultural life on the coattails of the New Left, but by now it certainly deserves its own place in the halls of intellectual barbarism. Close quote. Intellectual barbarism. That's a fantastic description of feminism. It is intellectual barbarism. It actually seeks to change human nature. Think about that. Are you really going to change human nature? From the outside, think about it. From the outside, can you force someone to change their nature? And can humans change their nature anyway? Can we suddenly stop being human? I know that transgenders and other people like that try to change their human nature, their biology, their anatomy. It's a delusional fantasy, those who try it. It doesn't work, and it will never work. So feminism, as root, is based on a lie, on a delusion, that men and women can somehow be identical. Equal, equal, equal. We always hear about equality. Men are not created equal, I'm sorry. We are created with equal rights, or else at least we're meant to be created with equal rights. We should enjoy equal protection under the law, but we are not equal. Two men, put them next to each other, they're not equal. They're not equal in intellect, in abilities, and talents. And so a man and a woman are also not equal. Men are different than women. Women are different than men. From our anatomy, to our biology, to our physiology, to our intellect, to our emotions, the way we think about things, thought processes, we're different. Women are more emotional. Men are more logical. And I don't care who calls me misogynistic or sexist for saying that. That's the truth. While you might have individual exceptions here or there, they're just that, exceptions. As a general rule, women are more, dare I say it, childlike. I'm not saying they have stunted intellects. I'm not saying they're simple-minded. But the way they think is much more on an emotional level. That's one of the amazing things about the plan that God set up, where women should be in the home when at all possible with their children. Because the way they think, the way they look at things, equips them to be with children, to help children grow, to nurture children and families. Men, on the other hand, we think much more logically, much more two-dimensionally, I guess you could say. And so we're much better in high-stress situations, in leadership positions when there has to be a hard decision made. Men are much better than that than women. Men hold up better under stress and trauma than women do. I know, again, there are people that try to deny human nature and say, "Oh, that's not true. Women have a higher pain tolerance because we can give birth," as if that's a fair comparison. If men had uteruses and the parts to do it and were designed to do it, they could go through the birth process too. So that one should be thrown out automatically. If you really look at it in real life, reality, men and women are different. We act differently, behave differently, react differently. Our emotions are different. Our thought processes are different. Our human nature between men and women is different. It's just a fact. And so, starting with Adam Weishaupt and his Illuminati, and later the communists in full force, they have sought to play on these differences and make them into inequalities, so-called inequalities. Because men and women are different, they twist that into meaning that, into having women think that this means they're oppressed. Because men and women are different, somehow men are oppressing women. If there are any inequalities whatsoever in anything whatsoever, then that is somehow a sign of oppression. The patriarchy is oppressing women, and the traditional family structure is oppressive. Women are just slaves at home. They're unpaid workers, as the feminists often say. And so, again, feminism is based on a lie. If you look at it, feminism is communism, really. I call it red feminism usually because it's Soviet in nature. What was the first nation in history to legalize no-fault divorces? The Soviet Union. What was the first nation in history to legalize abortion on demand? The Soviet Union. America has followed in the footsteps of the Soviet Union. We're following the communist blueprint. We're following their game plan. And some of the foot soldiers on the ground promoting this game plan, this cultural revolution, have been these Marxist feminists, these radical feminists. Henry Makow, in his book Cruel Hoax, Feminism and the New World Order, which is my pick for the best book on feminism ever written, he said, quote, "It is hard to escape the conclusion that feminism is communism by another name. Having failed to peddle class war, communism promoted gender conflict instead. The diversity and multicultural movements represent feminism's attempt to forge alliances by empowering gays and people of color. Thus, the original CPUSA, Communist Party USA, trio of race, gender, and class is very much intact." So, again, it is hard to escape the conclusion that feminism is communism by another name. You could say that it's communism in drag. It really is. It's nothing but Marxism. It comes straight from the Communist Manifesto, the abolition of the family. It comes from the writings of Friedrich Engels, who said that the patriarchy is oppressing women. It's straight out of their playbook. They use any little difference they can to pry people apart. It's the divide and conquer strategy that has been used for millennia. My friend Kylie Malkus and her mom wrote a book, In Feminism, Save the World. This book is my number 2 pick for good books on feminism, and I highly recommend it. On page 24, they wrote, quote, "The radical 1960s feminist movement was essentially a group of bitter women who were unsatisfied with their own lives and decided to take it out on society. The goal wasn't to change their own circumstances because they could already work in a man's world, if that's what they chose to do. They were already entitled by law to all the rights and opportunities granted to men. But that wasn't good enough. Their goal was to change the very foundation of a society that was already running smoothly, to fundamentally transform the culture to fit its own beliefs, to create new anti-discrimination laws, which were hardly necessary and only repressed freedom, to influence the minds and hearts of others to conform to their ideals. The goal of the 1960s feminist was to leave the traditional woman in the dustbin of history and move the female race away from their families and into the more empowered and enlightened lifestyle of 9-to-5 jobs." Close quote. Feminism is led by a group of bitter Marxist women. Many of them are Jewish women, actually a remarkably high number. They're secularists, materialists, they're humanists. They worship themselves, they're selfish. Feminism is code for selfishness. These feminists, they desire power. That's what they're always talking about, empowering women, as if women haven't been empowered already. They always talk about equal rights, as if the American woman has not enjoyed equal rights. There is no time in American history, when American women did not enjoy equal rights as men. Now, some might suddenly screech and holler, wait, what about the right to vote? Well, I'm not going to talk about this right now. I'll save this for another time, but do we have a right to vote? Or is it a privilege to vote? Think about that. I'll repeat that American women have never been denied any right, not privilege, right, that American men have. They've been equal, at least in terms of the law, since day one. And in fact, there's been no class of American society that has been more blessed and privileged and cherished and honored than American women. I have a quote here from a book titled The Flip Side of Feminism, What Conservative Women Know and Men Can't Say, by Suzanne Vinker and Phyllis Schlafly. The quote gets kind of to the heart of this right here, to the heart of the delusion. They say, quote, "For the past several decades, it has been widely accepted that women in America usually, if not always, get the short end of the stick. According to feminists, women, like blacks, have been oppressed for centuries. We're told not enough progress has been made, and the society still hasn't leveled the playing field. This philosophy is so embedded in our culture that Americans don't question it. They don't even label it feminist to think that way. It's just commonplace to believe women suffer discrimination. Turn on the television, flip through a magazine, or search America's airwaves, and you'll be deluged with stories about women who wonder how their needs can best be met, how they can balance their lives better, or how they can deal with the myriad of problems and dangers they face. Women's grievances dominate the conversation. But grievances are like crabgrass. The more heat they get, the more it spreads. And that is precisely what has happened with modern women. Feminist organizations even promote the growth of grievances by consciousness-raising sessions, where feminists exchange tales of how badly some man treated them and what government's role should be as a compensation. In the meantime, buried beneath the surface lies the truth. American women are the most fortunate human beings who have ever lived. No one has it better. No one. Close quote. American women are the most blessed people on the face of this earth. No group of society has ever been more fortunate, more blessed, more privileged than American women. And yet you have these feminists out there screeching in the streets and on social media and on the news and in movies and Hollywood about how oppressed they are by the so-called patriarchy that dominates them, this male conspiracy. They talk about all the inequality they see, the so-called pay gap, the pay wage gap, as if that hasn't already been debunked and disproven so many times that any honest person can't still believe it. American women have traditionally been the most privileged and blessed class of people on planet Earth. It's by their own doing that women have harmed themselves. There's no real war on women, unless you count the war that feminists wage against their own kind. The only war on women that you can see anywhere is feminists who are assaulting the very nature of women, who are demeaning what it means to be a woman, who are trying to do away with a woman's natural femininity, who are trying to erase these ties that have kept women to the home, to the family, the place that they were designed to shine. They want women to be like men. They want them to dress like men, to act like men, to swear like men, to smoke like men, to sleep around like men. As my dad once put it, they take the worst of male nature and try to emulate that and then call it freedom. They take these bad qualities of men, the smoking, the drinking, and then say, we're empowered, we're free. We're empowered women, hooray. In fact, they're just degrading womanhood. They're degrading femininity. They're taking women away from the home, from that place that they were the most powerful. Women are the most powerful in the home, as mothers, as wives, as homemakers. This is where your power really lies, women. It's in the home. This is where your talents are best used. This is the most powerful and influential career you can ever have, is inside the home. What you do in the business world as a CEO, as a lawyer, as some advocate in the government, that will fade away and no one's going to remember it. Let's just be honest. No one will ever remember what you do in the business world. But what you do in the home, now that will be remembered. That will reverberate down through the centuries and through the eternities. People will remember your name and they will respect you for being a mother in the home. Now, unfortunately, some women have to work due to their circumstances, and that's very unfortunate. And God bless you who have to. You'll be blessed for the righteous and pure desires of your heart, if you truly want to be at home with your children. But those who are not forced by circumstances to be outside of the home and then leave the home anyway are, in my opinion, selfish. Again, feminism is a code word for selfishness. One of the big things you can look at that proves this is divorce. A little under 50% of marriages in the United States end in divorce. Now, 80% of those marriages of those divorces are initiated by women. 80% of divorces are initiated by women. I'm not sure if you had heard that statistic before, but you can go look it up. It's out there. 80% are initiated by women. Now, the overwhelming majority of those are so-called no-fault divorces. Now, that means these women aren't claiming there's any sort of abuse. They're not claiming infidelity, per se. They're not really claiming anything. They're just saying, I don't want to be married anymore. If you really kind of look behind the mask, they're saying things like, I want to sleep around with someone else. I don't want to be tied down to the family. I want to pursue my own goals, my own hobbies. I want to go out and have fun. I want to go party. I don't want to have responsibility anymore. That's really what's going on. Selfishness is the number one cause of divorce. And unfortunately, it happens to be selfishness on the part of women. Now, do men cause divorces? Absolutely. 100%, yes, they do. So please don't think that I'm being 100% biased here against women. What I'm saying is that there is a symptom of this feminist cancer among us, and it's divorce. That's the ultimate symptom, that these women are initiating these no-fault divorces for no reason. I mean, no fault, right? There's no fault. I just don't want to be married anymore. That's what it comes down to. Why? Because they have been propagandized and indoctrinated and bombarded with lies by the feminist media. They've been told that women are not equal. They've been told that the home is a boring life. It's oppressive. Don't be shackled to your home. Go out and spend years and years and years getting into debt to get a so-called education. No, spend all your time in an office cubicle. That's the real good life. I don't know how any sane person could believe that. But unfortunately, millions and millions and millions of feminist indoctrinated women do believe that. They don't. When you ask your average woman today, and I've done this many times, what do you plan on doing one day? Never, almost never. It's like once out of 1,000 will they ever say, I want to be a wife. I want to be a mother. No, they say, I'm going to go to this college. I'm going to do this job. I want to be a lawyer. I want to see the world, all these sorts of things. It's a selfish attitude. This selfish feminism has come upon women all across this country, and is really a shame to see womanhood squashed by this feminist virus. Now again, this is a communist front movement. Remember, a front movement is a secret organization. It's something that's rather secretly controlled. And the people at the forefront, these everyday feminists who march topless and swear on the streets and assault people, they're just the dupes. It's the people at the top, however, that know what they're doing. The Adam Weishaupts of the world, the Karl Marxes, the Friedrich Engels, the Vladimir Lenins, they know exactly what they're doing. They know that they're manipulating women into the destruction of the home. Under the guise of all these emotional appeals like emancipation and liberation, women are being tricked. Women are being tricked into falling for it. A leader of my church, President Boyd K. Packer, he said this back in October 1964. He said, there is a trend in the world today, and unfortunately in the church, for women to want to be emancipated. And we wonder at times, emancipated from what? From domesticity? From motherhood? From happiness? And to what are you in slavery? Your children? Mothers, do not abandon your responsibilities. Close quote. And that's my plea to women. Do not abandon your responsibilities. You have God-mandated responsibilities. You are to be a wife and a mother and a homemaker, or keepers at home, as the scriptures say. This does not make you a slave. This does not mean you are oppressed. In fact, you have more influence and more power and more of a pull over society than you could ever have as a politician, as a lawyer, as a business CEO. You have much more power in the home. You know, the old saying, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. That's just not a some sort of talking point. That's reality. In a home, there are two main functions carried out by a man and a woman. The man is the head of the home, the woman is the heart. Earlier, I used an analogy about the body, cells in the body. Well, here's another analogy. In a body, you have a head and you have a heart. Can a body function without a heart? Can a body function without a brain or a head? No. Both have to be functioning at the same time, and both have to be functioning in their own separate spheres. The brain can't do the job that the heart can do. The heart can't do the job that the brain can do. The brain doesn't pump the blood to the rest of the body, the heart does. And vice versa. These sorts of separate responsibilities are inherent in the body, just like they are in society, in the animal kingdom, etc. So women who deny these natural, inherent, God-given duties are denying human nature. They're denying the plan of God. They're denying reality. They're denying what has actually worked for millennia. Feminism is a fairly recent phenomenon. You've had little bits of it here and there through history that have helped destroy families. But today it's really on a worldwide scale, such as has never been seen before. It's funny that women, they're very hypocritical, these feminist women. On the one hand, they talk about how oppressed they are. Then on the other hand, they talk about how they're in charge. They're the ones in control now. It's a women's world now. These sorts of things. They are delusional, in short. But it's also funny, too, because they say it's a women's world. Women are in control. Women are the CEOs now. More women are in college than men, etc. Is that something to be proud of? Think about it. Look at the course our society has been taking. It's a downhill slide ever since at least the 60s. You can go back further, but let's just say the 60s, when feminism really took over the culture. It's been a downhill slide since then. So is that something that you women should be proud of? That women are now in control? You're in control of a sinking ship, and it started sinking since you became the captain. So is that something to be proud of? What has feminism benefited our society? More people will get divorced now than ever before. Abortions are off the charts. Less people are getting married. More people are sleeping around, breaking God's laws. Now you have, as a reaction to feminism, a male version of feminism, the men going their own way movement, MGTOW. It's a male version of feminism. However, it's only a reaction to feminism. It's a byproduct of the feminist disease. So we must recognize feminism for what it is. It's a communist front movement. We're following the Soviet blueprint here in the United States by legalizing abortion, legalizing no-fault divorce, by emphasizing the destruction of the traditional family, or as Marx said, the abolition of the family. So as cells in a body die and the body weakens and eventually dies, so too, because our families are dying because of feminism, our society is also dying. And it's inevitable unless we reverse this course, unless women come back to their true role as mothers, as wives, as keepers at home, our society's finished. And this is all according to the communist blueprint. Red feminism has taken over this country. Now, I encourage everyone to turn inward to their own self. Look at their own microchip. Men and women have a distinct microchip, if you will. We know what's right. In polls, even though women want to be emancipated, liberated, and empowered, it's funny, in polls, women actually want a more dominant man. So even women know that feminism is a lie. Now, that's all they've been bombarded with their whole entire lives, that women are oppressed, woohoo. when in fact that's not true. And so they play the part, they act as these soldiers for the communist revolution. But really, when they sit back and think about it, these same women, they know that they want a strong man in their life. They know that where they have the most joy is in the home with children. Some of these women deny that, but in doing so, they deny their own human nature. They deny what their own heart and mind are telling them. And men, likewise, who try to abandon their home responsibilities, they're also abandoning what God set them out to do. To be leaders, to be providers, protectors. Now, because most women have ceased to be ladylike, does not give men an excuse to not be chivalrous and gentlemanly. Men, you should still be gentlemen. You still need to be chivalrous. You still need to respect women, even if they don't respect themselves and even if they don't respect you. It's the right thing to do. And women will actually gravitate towards that when you were stronger, when you were more dominant. Now, notice I did not say domineering. That's very different. Women should be submissive, but that does not mean subservient. Submissive does not mean inferior in any way, shape, or form. In fact, it takes a strong woman, not a weak woman, to be submissive. Just like it takes a strong man, not an insecure man, to be dominant or strong. This is getting back to the beginning. This is how society has always functioned. And anytime society functions well, you can look and see that this is the pattern, a patriarchal system. Not a system where women are oppressed, but a system where women are at home, where they ought to be. Where they are with their children, nurturing them. Well, mothers can nurture children far better than men can, let's be honest. Women, you've been given a special gift. You're the only ones who can really nurture children. That's your special gift, to be, in a sense, co-creators with God in bringing children into this world. And again, the things that you will be most remembered for throughout the eternities of time will be your acts in the home, will be how well you fulfilled your role as a mother. Do you think children remember what their mother did as a lawyer, the cases that they tried and helped win? Do you think they remember all the money their mothers raised as being business executives? No, they don't remember that. In fact, if they do remember it, they might remember it with contempt. They might remember how their mother wasn't in the home, how their mother didn't really care about them. They only cared about their job and themselves. However, little boys and little girls will remember if their mother was in the home with them. They will remember their mother singing a song to them at night, or reading them a book, or making them a really wonderful meal, or going out of their way to tuck them in at night. They will remember these little acts in the home. They'll remember the love they felt, the presence that they felt for their mother being in the home. This is what feminism is denying our world. They're denying these sweet memories of mother and child. They are breaking up and splitting apart marriages. They're creating a very fierce antagonism between men and women. Men and women aren't designed to compete with one another, yet that's what the feminists want to do. They want to compete. They want to be empowered. It's women's turn now. You always hear stuff like that. Men don't want to compete with women. Men would beat women in every single aspect if we actually competed. I know there's women that are sitting back right now laughing at that or thinking I'm a sexist. But it's true, women. Let's be honest. And in an article I wrote titled "Women Should Not Be Allowed in the Military," that's on my website, theamericancitadel.com. I quoted from a female Marine sergeant, I believe she was. She'd served in Iraq and served a couple tours, and she said that here's the reality. You take the best man against the best woman in any field of military endeavor, the man's going to win 100% of the time. And she said that's not she said that's just the reality. She said that's me being honest. And this is a woman, remember. So it's not me, and she's not a gender traitor. She's a realist. She knows the reality. It's the same in throughout life and civilization. And yet, the one thing that women surpass men on, that men can't do very effectively, is mothering and nurturing. Just that little fact alone should get through to women that this is their role. This is their highest achievement and career. This is the most important thing they can do. The greatest influence they can ever have will be in the walls of their own home as mothers, wives, and homemakers. Feminism, however, comes in and distorts that picture. They portray this right role as a woman being a mother and a man being the father and provider. They distort this and say this is inequality. Men and women are the same. They deny human nature. And unfortunately, this isn't just an accidental theory that some misguided women came up with. This is according to a plan set forward by Adam Weishaupt back in the 1780s. It's been followed and promoted by the communists. It was in the Communist Manifesto to abolish the home and the family. The writings of Marx and Engels, Vladimir Lenin. He once said that hatred is the basis of communism, and children must be taught to hate their own parents if they won't come along with the communist revolution. And so it's the same thing. This red feminism teaches hate. Women are supposed to hate men because supposedly men are oppressing them. They're supposed to hate their own children and abort them and kill them. My body, my choice. Actually, no, that's not true. After you make the decision and choice to have sex, to create life within you, you are dealing with another body that has a pulse and a heartbeat, that feels pain, that can grow and mature to every potential that you have. It's not your body, it's not your choice. Every feminist slogan is wrong. Every one of them denies human nature, and every one of them is carefully calculated to play on a woman's emotions, to manipulate them into prying apart the family. Remember, Adam Weishaupt said that their chief study should be how to manipulate women. And the main way they would do that is by promising them, giving them hints of emancipation. So in other words, women's liberation. In truth, women's liberation is world subjugation. Women's liberation equals world subjugation because it assaults the foundation of civilization, the family, the traditional patriarchal family, the family that's kept society functioning and alive for all these millennia. We have a very long and steep, dangerous, rocky road ahead if this feminist virus is not quarantined very, very quickly. Women, you actually have the greatest potential to curb this downward trend, to bring things back to a higher level. Just like you've been manipulated to destroy your own marriages and homes, you can turn that around against the conspirators, and you can strengthen your home. You can strengthen your marriage by embracing your role as a mother and as a good wife and as a keeper at home. You can empower the men in your lives with more confidence. You can empower yourself by extending your influence to your children in a much more perceptible way. Think about it. What influence does a woman have over her children who just sends them off to daycare or to a babysitter all day long? Her influence is very minimal. But a mother who's in the home with her children, her influence is profound and irreversible. So women, you want true power? Go back to the home. The home is where you were designed to shine. And if you want the men in your life to treat you with more respect, to be gentlemen, also go back home. Become the submissive women you are designed to be, that your sweet spirits crave to be. And then men will treat you with even more respect than they ever had before. I repeat, feminism is a disease. It is a mental and a moral and a spiritual contagion. It is a disorder of the mind and heart. It is evil. Feminism, women's liberation, is evil. And again, I don't care how many feminists screech and holler and say that I'm a misogynist or a sexist for saying that. That's a reality. That's truth. And I don't deny human nature. It's human nature. Feminism is a disease. It is a communist front movement. It is a Marxist plot. Please understand that. The last thing I want to read comes from my friend's book, In Feminism, Save the World. It says, the hard reality is the feminism of today is a hideous, hairy armpitted abomination that needs to be suffocated, thoroughly incinerated, and rightfully forgotten in the dustbin of history. And remember, that's two women writing. Not misogynists. They're not gender traitors. They're women who understand their role in life. They understand how dangerous and damaging feminism is. They see the negative impact. And so I encourage you to become informed about feminism, to reject it wholeheartedly, emphatically, 100% of the time, to reject this false worldview, to reject this communist attempt to pry you and your family apart, to separate you from your husband, to snuff out the love that you have for your husband that he has for you, to make you selfish, to make you a tool, a dupe of the revolution. This is Zach Strong, signing off for Liberty Wolf. Sic Semper Tyrannis. Long live liberty.